Okay, welcome to the April 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Southborough Historical Commission. The time is 7:04 p.m. and I'm going to call the meeting to order, noting that we have a quorum with myself, Kevin Miller, present, joined by Annie Pfaff, Grant Farrington, and Michelle Hokinson, with a couple of other members expected hopefully to join us shortly. We also have among the our sole attendee, as it turns out, one of the applicants, Ellen Moorhead. And this is a single item agenda tonight, so we'll be able to do this pretty quickly. And it is the public hearing for the demolition application for 77 Deerfoot Road. And just because, and here's Jim. So now we've got five members in attendance. Welcome, Jim. It's your so again, just because I know people will look in this meeting afterwards. I want to just very quickly recap and set the stage of where we're at with this. Once the demolition application comes in, it comes to me officially in the OpenGov system. We have 10 business days to schedule and hold the meeting, and it happened to overlap with a meeting I believe we already had planned, which was our March 19th meeting. And that first part of the process is, of course, again, in most cases, strictly procedural, because we have to make, as it was in this case, where we have to make an initial determination whether or not the property is historically and or architecturally significant. If it is, it triggers under the bylaw, the requirement for a hearing. If we judge that it is not historically or architecturally significant, the applicant can go forward with their business straight away. In the case of this house, which is listed in the Macris database as the Jacob Bemis house or the John L. Bickford house, circa 1840, it was a pretty clear determination, a very easy one for us, that this was, in fact, and it has one of our historic house signs on it, which we're delighted about. But it was a very easy, of course, determination for us at the last meeting that it was architecturally and historically significant. There's actually dual coverage, as we talked about in the Macris, pretty extensive on this house. And so, the only thing that, if you remember what we debated a little bit was the bylaw calls, that we have to make that determination if there's to be substantial demolition. And we did have a little bit of a conversation about whether or not the sunroom that the applicant proposes to remove is substantial. And, it's one of these ones, just for the record, that sunroom is about 11 by 14. It's 154 square feet. The listed square footage of the house, the Patriot Properties, the property tax database, is 2926. So you're talking about 5% of the square footage of the house. I mean, so it's small, but I don't think not insignificant. That it seemed, to bring it, that consideration seemed to go by the wayside. And so, we took the vote, obviously, and we did deem it architecturally and or historically significant, really, on both counts. So that, again, under the bylaw, we then have 45 business days to hold this hearing. And I will say, Kelly has come in the attendees. I'm just promoting her to panelists. So now we're up to 6. And I know Dan won't be with us. So we are now at nearly full strength. But we have up to 45 business days to have this hearing, and with some really nice cooperation, actually, from the building department. We're having it in 10. This is the 10th business day from March 19th, which is, and it turns out, and we'll have to bank this for future use, this is the quickest we've ever done it, at least under my chairship. And actually, I think the quickest it's conceivably possible to do, because it's got to be posted for 7 days, calendar days, and it takes a couple of days to get it to the newspaper, and they have their own production schedule, and the notice, by the by, gets published in the Metro West Daily News, the Milford Daily News, online, and then of course it's duly posted at the townhouse for a week. So with all those factors, actually, for what it's worth, again, with help from the building department, we did a fantastic job in getting this on the boards and get to this hearing as quick as humanly possible. So again, as you know, and I'll just bring this up quick and go through this very rapidly, that there's the house as it sits. This is just the Google Street View. 1840 on this, circa, and the Macros report talks about that there's some feeling that this house was either a reconstruction or a replacement of an even earlier house that could go back to, where was that? I believe 1833. I'm sorry, 1831. And this was, of course, the farmhouse, as you know, a farm that at one time was as large as 73 acres. And by 2000, when the most recent Macros report coverage on this property was done, it was down to 6.82 acres. And today, the parcel is just a fraction over 1 acre. So this is the original house and the L. These are both thought by the consultants to date to circa 1840. And then the subject of the demolition application is this small sunroom and the chimney that, according to the Macros, was added on in the early 20th century. And as we discussed last time, the building department doesn't know the exact date. The Macros doesn't have the exact date. The applicant doesn't know the exact date. So early 20th century, this is an addition. This is what they want to get rid of in order to build an attached garage. But again, the proposal doesn't touch the central structure, and the only alteration to the L, besides the attachment of the garage, is going to be a dormer in the back, which should not be visible essentially from the street. So the house is, fundamentally going to stay intact. I would show also, this is the photograph from the better of the two Macros reports on the property. And it's really stunning because this photo was apparently taken in 1999 or 2000. And I mean, if any of you driven down there, you can see how tremendously the parcel has changed. This is when the property still has about 7 acres. And they have this absolutely magnificent barn, which is thought to date to 1844. Then there's a cow barn here that was added in the mid 20th century. Macros has it as 1948, and some ancillary outbuildings. All of this is gone. Roughly where these old barns are is the Moorheads' next door neighbor. I believe that would be 79 Deerfoot. That's a 3,600 square foot house that was built in 2005. So you can see the timeline, and part of the fascinating and somewhat heartbreaking story of the whole parcel. It is what it is, but it sort of charts the evolution of the Macros report of the property, its ownership. It tells a story about Southborough's obviously agricultural history, and then it has a sort of sub-theme of the kind of immigrant experience in Southborough and the Irish immigrants that own this property in the early 20th century. And then it passes over, it's still a working farm for most of the 20th century. But eventually, as Southborough evolves into a bedroom community from an agricultural one, pieces of the property get sold off. And again, where these barns are, about right here, is where the Moorheads' current neighbors are, and they're very attractive house. But so the landscape is utterly, utterly, utterly changed. And then last thing I'll show you, by the way, and you can see here in this old 2000 photo, that's the sunroom. Again, that's what they want to get rid of. And then lastly, just so you can remind yourselves, here are a bit of the stamp drawings for what they're proposing in its place. This is the existing house, going to stay just as it is. Here's the existing L, staying essentially as it is, except with the exception of the addition of this dormer in the back. That's where my cursor is now. And what they want to put on is, this barn, which is, I just called it a barn. It is a nod, of course, to the old barn in that, it's a two-car garage with some apparently scheduled to be, I believe, unconditioned space above for storage that, with the cupola, very attractive with nice windows and will, a barn-like garage. So that's that. And by the way, again, one last time, if you want to see, this is what's coming off if we approve. The little sunroom and that chimney. So, I thought the consensus last time was that we seem to think this was an easy one. I still feel the same way, that, and from my standpoint, I'm very happy, and I know that the applicant knows that they have a historic house, loves that they have a historic house, bought it because they have a historic house, and wants to make it workable for their family and perhaps future owners for another 100 years or 200 years. And so it seems to me this sunroom, which, as you would expect, air leaky, drafty, not of much use, difficult to heat. To remove that in some ways is to go back to what the original 1840 structure was, right? You're removing this 20th century tack on. And, you're adding, as per the drawings, and the applicant, Mr. Moorhead, is actually the architect on this project by trade. And so he's designed this. I find it very attractive. I find it makes complete sense. You could be a real sort of purist and hold out. You think, oh, I wish that the garage could somehow be hidden, so that the original 1840 structure could be unmolested. But you only to look at it, if you had an opportunity to do so, if you look at the site plan and what they're dealing with, there's just no way. They have very little. The frontage is really the limiting factor there. You couldn't get anything behind, and the topography of that parcel is also a real challenge. So personally, I just find it a good solution. And again, to me, the approval of this is going to guarantee that the house is there for another couple hundred years. So I look at it as a good solution. But what I want to do is ask all of you if you have anything you want to ask the Moorheads who are here, and we can allow them to talk, and we'll ask them also if they have anything they want to say, and then we'll get to a vote. Of course, the other purpose I should point out of advertising a public hearing in print, online, and posted at the townhouse, right, is to make sure that any abutters, any neighbors that might have anything to say about it have their opportunity to speak their piece. Now, as it happens, there's nobody here in the gallery except the applicant. But that's why you have, that's part of the reason why we have this step, right? And part of the reason why we have up to 45 business days to accomplish that if we need a site visit, which I didn't feel we needed in this case, and no one indicated otherwise at our last meeting, Sometimes we need a site visit. Sometimes we need the opportunity for quite a bit more research. But with it all laid out for us in the macros and the kind of consensus that we seem to have the last time, again, there was no need to take up all that, process kind of stuff and have site visits and a sort of deeper dive into this, since we seem to be fairly well in agreement. But Annie, do you have anything you want to add, ask the Moorheads, or comment on this?
I don't have anything to add or ask other than just thanks for coming back for the hearing. And yeah, look forward to our vote.
Jim, anything on this?
Nothing to add or ask. In fact, the historic part of the house, to my point of view, is the original facade without the sunroom. So this is really going back to what the house was, or not affecting the historic part of the house. I think that the design is tasteful. I appreciate the owners in particular being as cooperative and supportive, and in fact expressing their intent to keep the house a long time. So for a lot of good reasons, to me, this is an easy choice. And I think, Kevin, the question for us is whether or not to declare this demolition as historically significant. How do we properly, get to a vote? How would you want to describe it?
Well, the vote would simply be on the property itself, to whether or not to declare the property preferentially preserved. And so if we want, obviously to let the applicant go forward, you'd vote no. If you want to hold it for, up to 9 months, you'd vote yes. But
that was the catch-22 I was thinking of, because we're not trying to cover or remove the historic significance of the house. I don't know if a vote that says that it's not historically preferentially preserved to allow this work. In other words, isn't that maybe getting our definitions upside down? So I'm very much in support of approving that we take the sunroom down. I think we all are, but I don't know if there's some precedent that this sets just because of the limitations of the language.
Yes, and that's a very good point. And what I would say about it, Jim, is that the demolition application is only for the sunroom. So I think we can, I totally hear what you're saying, because you're saying, let's say some future owner wants to come down and tear the whole thing down, but the issue then would be is that they would have to reapply for, and it's very clear that we're making it quite clear that we're acting only on this application, not on the blanket. I totally get where you're going, but I don't think we're creating any problem for ourselves by just voting no.
I think we want to be a little more clear, though, Kevin, because a no would set someone in the future could decide that that's a precedent. The house is not historically significant, and no one here is saying that. I think when we phrase the motion, it should be to vote that the house is not deemed historically preserved with regard to the sunroom demolition application.
That's fine. I mean, and while we hear from everybody else, would you write this motion up?
I just did a good ones, but
so that you can, or just get it clear in your head. So we'll have you make it, because I see what you're saying, and I don't think there's any problem with that whatsoever.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't last meeting, didn't we vote to say that the building itself is historically significant?
We did.
That was our vote. So I feel like if we act within, the parameters of the whether or not it's preferentially preserved, I don't think that in any way negates the vote that we took last. We did take a vote saying that the house is historically significant. So I don't think that by not preserving, we're saying
now you're pushing me. Yeah, no, not to sound like I'm waffling, but that does make sense. And as I said, Jim, I think really what we are only voting on the application that's in front of us, and the application is only for the sunroom. I appreciate the concern, but Grant makes a good point to me also that we've already voted that the building is historically and architecturally significant. So now we're really only voting. But I don't know, Grant, what about the rest of you? If we phrase the motion that we are voting, if the vote is always whether to preferentially preserve or not, you can say, is that, Grant, I don't see the problem with saying just that this is with regard to the sunroom that they propose to remove, and then we would all vote if that's how people feel. No, that we're not going to preferentially preserve. They can go forward. I'm trying to balance.
I think that would work. Yeah.
I think if we are very carefully word the motion, I'm comfortable with that.
And I'm sure the applicant can appreciate that we're trying to be careful with this, because it's a different situation than we talked about this last time than we've been in before, and it's a little bit tricky. Ellen's got her hand up. Go ahead, Ellen.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks again for devoting time to our project. I also just want to share, and as you know, obviously we're talking about the demolition of the sunroom, but we are altering the back of that L. So if you need to write any type of description in there as it relates to the L, I just obviously want to make sure that there's, no confusion in exactly what, we're writing up here.
Right. No, I appreciate you mentioning that, actually, because that's also, we should, because again, I don't think anybody here objects to that part of the project at all. So, but it's a good point. This is why, again, it pushes me back to just saying, let's just make it a clear vote, preferentially preserve or not. And again, because I would lean on the fact that I'm talking to my fellow historical commission members, that anybody that actually wanted to take down the whole rest of the house, which is what everybody's worried about, or setting a precedent for that, has to come back with an application stating as much. And I think we're laying down a very clear record here in this meeting and in the minutes of the meeting and in the discussion that we're having now, that we're, explicitly, we would be basically not preferentially preserving the house with an eye toward the removal only of the sunroom, and not somehow giving some blanket thing for the future that would allow someone to just come down and tear the rest of it down someday. Certainly would be the Moorheads, but some future owner that decides they don't want the whole rest of the joint. They would have to come back. They would have to come back to us again. But we can, figure some. I think that can be included. But I'm glad that Ellen brought up that fact, because they ought to be altering, the back half of the roof and part of the L to some degree to get that dormer in.
But I think the wording implies, if not exactly, of the demolition delay when you're affecting the facade, not the rear of the property that you don't see from the street. So I don't know if the rear has any bearing on this in terms of a vote.
Isn't the facade just the exterior, regardless of what side it's on?
Yeah, I think it would be the entire envelope of the building.
I may be thinking of a guideline that was up for a while and then got taken down, but it had to do with what you could see from the street as the way the advisor.
We had some of that discussion last time with regard actually to the historic house sign program and some of the stipulations about contribution to the streetscape and whatnot. Let's continue. Grant, did you have anything that you wanted to note, or?
No,
you'd sort of gotten.
I think that was about it. I guess I do have a question for you, Ellen, while you're here. So the the demolition application mentions realignment of a mudroom and some of the other rooms in that area of the house. That would only be interior realignment. Is that correct? And it wouldn't have.
Yep, that is correct. The
Okay.
only alteration to the exterior of that L is the dormer in the rear.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And you know, one by the way, side benefit to this whole project that you know, the Moorheads are sort of undertaking is that I actually think, because I know they plan to remove a lot of kind of large shrubs and whatnot in front of the L, that it's actually, I think, ultimately going to show the existing house to much better advantage. You know, as with is that correct, Ellen, that you're planning sort of a re-landscape as part of this project?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, our plans show that we actually have to remove some of the trees, you know, that are currently at the entryway to that sunroom. So yeah, there will be additional changes to, you know, just to landscape and curb appeal.
Yeah, and I actually think that that's going to, like I said, show the original house, which is the L in particular right now, somewhat obscured, you know, by the
yeah, the big rhododendrons and
yeah, they're quite beautiful, and it's heartbreaking to have to lose them, but you know,
yeah,
you're going to gain, I think, people will be able to appreciate the house even more once that's accomplished. Michelle, do you have anything?
Just one small thing. I just want to reiterate what everyone has said. I'm very happy that they are not tearing down the whole house and just a small 5% add-on from the 20s.
Kelly?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Well, if Ellen, you or Michael don't have anything else, I think we can bring this, if that's okay with everybody, bring this to a vote. There's no one in the gallery, so we don't have anybody that's going to want to talk. Anything else, Ellen or Michael? Okay, well, let's do it.
I'll make the motion. I move that we declare 77 Deerfoot not worthy or not necessary for preservation in regard to the sunroom demolition application.
Well, can we actually? I think we need to make the motion as the vote is to preferentially preserve, and then in which case, if you want to let them go forward, you vote no.
Right.
So should the motion be
so you're saying to flip the motion and
right,
then we
yeah.
flip the votes.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, just to be consistent with this, that I think the motion should be to
not declare it as preferentially preserved.
No, to say, like, I would, let's say I'm making a hypothetical motion. I would move to determine 77 Deerfoot Road. And I think you have to say the whole project, because it's all attached. Again, but the application is specifically for the sunroom, and it's going to include some alteration to the roof, the rear roof of the L. But there's no way to enter that, for instance, in the just FYI, like in the OpenGov system, when I have to go in later tonight or tomorrow and give our determination, right? I don't get to cherry pick. I either say it's preferentially preserved or it's not. So again, I think we would go back, and we've well established in the conversation, we could say the motion is to declare 77 Deerfoot Road preferentially preserved, with the stipulation that we are specifically having, with the stipulation that having previously found the house both historically and architecturally significant, we are voting on the basis of the proposal to demolish the sunroom, remove the chimney, and alter the roof line of the L. Just so we have that on the record, right? And then if you support, allowing the applicant to go forward right now with their project, you vote no. Does that make sense? Should I can make the motion if that's all right. I'll just say, listen, I move that we determine 77 Deerfoot Road preferentially preserved, with the stipulation that having previously found the building both historically and architecturally significant, we are responding to the application for a demolition permit to remove the sunroom as stipulated in the application, and to alter the roof line of the addition or of the L. And sorry, this is so protracted and painful, but just realize that, again, when I go in and enter this into the system, it's simply going to be yes or no.
Right.
And so, but we have it on the record now in the video and so on. Fair enough? Okay. Motion made and seconded. Sorry that was so painful. Roll call vote. Miller is no. Annie?
No.
Jim?
No.
Grant?
No.
Michelle?
No.
Kelly?
No.
All right. So that is
Soundly defeated.
0-6. 0-6. The property is not preferentially preserved. And the Moorhead...
For this application.
For this application, which will be noted in the OpenGov, and Michael and Ellen, Godspeed with your project and congratulations. And it was, difficult linguistically to get, but we got there, and good luck with your construction project. And I look forward to driving by at some point and seeing the fabulous progress you've made. So thank you, both of you.
Well, thank you, everybody. I know I speak for Michael when I say this, is we really deeply appreciate what you do as the Historic Commission and your devotion to really preserving Southborough as best as you can in these modern days. So thank you very much.
Well, okay, thank you. And I appreciate your stellar cooperation throughout, and thanks so much, and good luck with the project.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Hang on, everybody. So I put approved meeting minutes of 3/19 in an access of optimism, but I know poor Grant has been busy and didn't get to it, so we'll hold that next. And thank you, by the way, for it. It's tough, and Jim, I really appreciate the sort of caution in that, because it is unusual territory for us with this particular thing where they're just taking off a piece, and we've not faced it before. And so, like I said, one of the things I'd like to do going forward is to really get it in gear on the revision of the DDBL. And this is one of the things that I want to go to Jay Tallerman with and get his opinion on, about how we can, maybe set up some language in the bylaw that will make it easier for us to deal with this, so we're not so sort of stumbling on that kind of question in future, and some clarification. But I think we're in good shape with regard to this one. I think we did the right thing in the right way for the right reason. So I'm really happy about it. Any other business? There is none. We meet, what is it, in 2 weeks on, I have it written down somewhere and I've lost it.
The 17th.
The 17th. That's a
Wednesday.
Wednesday. So 2 weeks from tomorrow, we meet again, and we will have fresh business. But public comment, well, there's no attendees, so there can't be any. So we can go right to adjournment. Somebody want to make that motion?
I moved to adjourn.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Miller's aye. Annie,
Yes.
Jim,
Aye.
Grant,
For the shortest historical commission meeting I've ever been in. Aye.
In history, yeah.
Michelle,
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Shortest certainly in my tenure, that's for sure. 39 minutes. And see you later. Thank you very much and good night.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Good
everyone.
night.
Good
Good
to see
night.
you.
See you guys.